Before we start the meeting, I've got a few housekeeping announcements to make. There is no planned fire drill today. Should the alarm sound, a member of staff will direct you to the nearest exit. Please could I ask that the mobile phones are turned off or to silent mode and place them away from the microphones to avoid sound interference. And finally, when speaking, please ensure the microphone is turned on, and when you finish speaking, please turn your microphone off. Thank you. Linda. Live streaming. We are. Thank you. Right, so we'll move straight in then to item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. I've received apologies from councillors Billy Brooks, Carl Drury, Stephen Evans, James Knowles, Terry Knowles, Thomas Kemp, Wendy Boker, Will Grover and Alex Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, disclosure of interests. Anything, members? Oh, yes, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. Just into relation to some comments in the leaders' report, just to let you know that I work at the campus for future living.
Thank you. Any more? Yes.
I'm just declaring that I do have a member of my family who works for East Lindsey, if anything comes up regarding East Lindsey.
Right, thank you. Yes, Councillor David.
Sorry about that. Motion 3, just not prejudicial, but just to record the fact that I'm a director and trustee of the Renewable Energy Foundation.
Thank you. Oh, yes, Councillor.
Sorry, I put my hand up there. I'd like to just declare that I'm a director of PS2.
Thank you.
But appointed by this council. Thank you.
Thank you. So we move on to item 3, which is the minutes, to confirm the minutes of the annual council meeting, which was held on the 21st of May 2025. Could we have a proposer and seconder for that, please? Proposer Megison Sanders and Councillor Marsh seconds. Thank you. Yes, can we say all in favour, please? Any against? Thank you. Item 4, to confirm actions following the annual council meeting held on the 21st of May 2025.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I believe the actions are all shown as complete. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Jackson, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for this update. It's really reassuring on page 21 that Boston College side is in use. I notice it commented by councillors quite often. How can we encourage further use when the local government reorganisation comes around in this building that has to ensure that this building has continued occupancy? Thank you.
I'm advised, Councillor Jackson, there's no opportunity for questions, unfortunately. Oh, sorry, Councillor Megison Sanders.
Thank you. Well, I was interested in the stuff from Boston College. I wondered actually if they'd been on the creative writing course when I read the report. It says between autumn 23 and summer 25, they had 130 learners, 65 a year. I don't think subsidising by people to the tune of £9,200 each for training, such as some of the training I've read about there, whether there was an extensive portfolio of courses. I mean, heavens above, I think we invested the £1.2 million went into that scheme. and it's not washing its face. It's just ridiculous. And I was really disappointed to read this. I think they've failed. They failed to hit targets that they ought to have been given. And the food safety and catering, I think it's a joke. I did that course online. I didn't need to go to Horncastle College to do it.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Okay, is that it now? Yeah. Item 5 then, communications from me. Please, members, advise members that a parish order has been published in pursuance of section S91 of the Local Government Act 1972. The East Lindsey District Council has appointed district councillors Daniel McNally, Edward Mossop and Paul Rickett to South Somercotes Parish Council so that the parish council meetings are able to convene. A reminder also to members that the General Licensing Committee programme for Monday the 21st has been cancelled due to a lack of substantive business. We're gutted. Okay. And my civic event, Spilsby, I visited Spilsby Town Council Recognition Award event at Franklin Hall on the 31st of May, and the Louth Male Voice Choir Midsummer Musical Evening concert at St James's Church, Louth, on Saturday the 21st of June. And finally, the grand opening of Seathorne Bank Railway Stations at Skegness on the 28th of June. That's all from me. Questions by the public? No questions. So item 7, report of from the chairman of the executive board. Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. You have a written report in your agenda pack. I would just like to add to that, well done to Councillor Devereux and her team for the very successful funding fair that happened here last Wednesday. I understand it was very well attended, very well received by parish councillors and all those that attended. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get there, but I did understand it was a very successful evening and hopefully the first of many. Just in respect to the rest of the report, Campus for Future Living, myself, along with Councillor William Gray, attended the official launch day of the campus in Mablethorpe on June the 16th. It was a really successful day. Very good to see all our partners there. Very good to see our MP there, who was instrumental in getting the money for Mablethorpe, the Towns Fund. And I think actually it probably merits Councillor Gray. Where is Councillor Gray? Here, at some point to give this council a briefing about all the work that the campus will be doing and the benefits that it will bring to Mablethorpe and surrounding area. I think it's a fantastic place, and well done to all the officers and teams involved in that, and also the people that are operating the site itself. Impact Managers Development Programme, all very good to read that, and the enhancement of our officers' skills and people joining the workforce. Of course, the age-friendly work is always important as an employer, and very pleased to see that we're engaging in that as well. Corporate introductions, again, very good to see that our workforce is being welcomed to fully understand what we do across the organisation. And Vintage on Sea, again, unfortunately, I couldn't get to it, but I also understand it was a very successful day and enjoyed by so many visitors and locals as well, which is fantastic to see. Sutton on Sea is a great setting for such things, and long may it continue. Culture Conference, the Partnerships Culture Conference provided to be a dynamic and successful event. You have it there before you. And again, another event that actually generates interest and continuation of the idea that heritage and culture is good for well-being and the economy. So very pleased to acknowledge all those events. I just wanted to bring up as well, councillors, an additional couple of comments. On Thursday, the 10th of July, we had the media launch of our LGR and Greater Lincolnshire for All proposal, and that went very well. That was in Lincoln, and you'll have all seen or all been sent the supporting documents and social media links. We need to be bold and ambitious, and our engagement will be county-wide and seek the views of residents, partners and town and parish councillors. We believe our proposal is the most sensible and will deliver for our residents and communities. We believe our proposal best fits the government criteria as well. The other two proposals that will most likely be considered, the most likely to be considered is the LCC continuity model, and like ours, a two-council solution, but with a significant imbalance of population. Currently, that stands at 795,000 versus 329,000, and by 2042, the population would be 865,000 for the Greater Lincolnshire area and 326,000 for the two northern unitaries combined. Our population model accords with the criteria of government, circa 500k, and obviously you have the details in those packs that have been sent to you. This is better for the democratic relationship between resident and councillor, even though it's still challenging, and also means we can provide services of the highest quality across adult and children's services, and also on other areas of provision. And of course, change is not always welcomed, but it must be very clear that we did not seek this. Effectively, government have said to us, engage positively, or we will make this happen. We have chosen to engage positively, and we will make sure that this council is fully briefed throughout the process prior to submitting our proposal in November. And it was very good to see so many of you today at the LAL conference in Lincoln. ELDC had a stand, and it was really informative for those councillors on the exec board that were there to listen to the concerns of parish councillors and clerks from across the county. So that was a very good event as well. Mr. Chairman, now on to everything's serious, but this is something that I know affects many residents and councillors in this chamber. A year ago, National Grid held their stage 1 consultation on the early proposals for their Grimsby to Walpole project. We are now nearing the end of their stage 2 consultation, which has run from 11th of June and will close at midnight on Wednesday, the 6th of August, 2025. If councillors or residents have not made their submissions, I encourage them to do so. ELDC, as a local planning authority, will be making a detailed technical submission. Tonight, I speak as a concerned community leader and council leader. Our residents, communities and affected ward councillors are still grappling with the potential unwanted intrusion of this 400 kilovolt overhead transmission line across our district. As I've stated before, this will scar and destroy vistas that have existed for millennia and are valued by residents now and should be into the future. This will undoubtedly affect our tourism industry, worth £874 million in 2024, and employing 6,500 residents in the sector. It will also alter the balance of economics for many operating farms across Lincolnshire. Many operating from who may be tempted to move away from food production to generation, as nationally we ignore the necessity for food security. It will also drive tenant farmers off the land and threaten compulsory purchase on those landowners who resist the move away from traditional agriculture. And all this is being assisted by changes this Labour government is making to the planning regime that will see compulsory purchase of land to facilitate solar farms, and a change in the threshold of what makes decisions on large renewable, of who makes decisions on large renewable energy applications. More applications will be considered as nationally significant infrastructure projects and decided by the Planning Inspectorate and the Secretary of State. The reality is we are becoming more and more distant from those decision-making processes. This scheme is being presented to us as a means of taking energy from where it is being produced to where it is needed in the south of England. Seemingly all well and good. And just forgive me for a second, I want to show you this map that came with the consultation. So in reality, I fear that this scheme is somewhat a Trojan horse, because the reality is that not all the questions have been answered about it. There are a number of questions that do need to be fully clarified and answered. Why is there not an alternative to this proposed route? Surely it would make more sense to have an undersea link straight to the Thames estuary. Why are there two proposed substations near Alford? The answers to these questions lie in the nature of what National Grid is. It is a publicly traded company whose shares can be purchased on the stock market. Its motivation is therefore not necessarily the interests of those affected by the transmission lines, but rather by its shareholders. And while I'm happy to say I'm a capitalist, sometimes the interests of capital are not always benign. This link is not just a transmission line north to south. It's an open door to future large-scale solar and onshore wind renewable energy generation along its whole length. And if allowed, sorry,
Getting over your time, councillor Leyland.
may I have, well, can I have dispensation?
Councillors,
Carry on.
all agree, councillor Leyland carries on.
How long have I been talking?
Thank you.
5 minutes. Oh, I didn't find myself when I did this, I'm sorry. Okay, so this link is not just a transmission line north to south, it's an open door to future large-scale solar and onshore renewable energy generation along its whole length. If allowed, this district will be generating and be a storage hub for the southwest of England with little or no benefit to our residents. Sorry, southeast of England, I beg your pardon. Thank you, just test. Alford has 2 substations because one is not enough to connect to all the anticipated connections that will be driven by multiple solar farms along its route. We already know energy companies are lining up to purchase land. It will decimate our tourism industry. It will distort our agricultural heritage into a grotesque sea of sterile solar panels and make institutions and companies with no connection to Lincolnshire very rich, all to the detriment of what we value locally. I don't believe National Grid have provided full costings of other routes, including the seabed option. This information must be detailed and made public. They have arbitrarily determined that pylons are the best option without providing the detailed evidence. The previous position of LCC under Conservative control was as a legal challenge would be funded against National Grid, forcing them to provide such information. And while I read this morning that LCC will spend £750,000 on planning consultants, I would urge Councillor Brooks in his role at County Council that the Reform Party, if they're serious about stopping these pylons, must ensure that they agree to such a legal challenge. We must disrupt this onslaught on this progress of this monstrosity across our district. And again, I say to residents affected, please make your submissions on the consultation before the 6th of August. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, councillor Leyland. Right, I've got councillor Arnold.
I'll try not to talk as long as you did, Craig, but who knows. Just a couple of things on your report. I just would like to just bring up the vintage on sea. So I'm really grateful. What is all that noise? Really, grateful for the support that Sutton on Sea gets in putting on this fantastic event. Very well attended. However, I would just want to feedback on some of the concerns that residents have come to me with. For example, having a stall outside the public house selling beer from a barrel, not good in engaging local businesses. Having an ice cream seller selling ice creams from an ice cream van next door to the local seller, again, not great. I don't want to discourage the event, but I just think we need to be thinking about, it's not just about attracting people to this tourist event, it's about keeping the people of Sutton on Sea feeling valued, and that certainly didn't happen, which is a real disappointment. So I would really just like some feedback on who made those decisions, because it was a bit disappointing. In regards to your National Grid, I totally agree with what you said. I did go on the councillor briefing, which we then had changed at the last minute, where we couldn't actually ask questions because the questions were vetted. And that was really disappointing, because we were all putting questions in. Lots of councillors was there, and they were choosing which questions to read out and which ones not to read out. So I have submitted as a resident, but again, I just would get behind what Craig has said. And if you haven't, do, and if you've got friends and family that also need to do it. And yeah, I'm looking towards Danny as well as hopefully being a voice for the East Lindsey area, to ensure that County Council do what they promised. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you for that report. On the impact sessions, this is something that Councillor and Martin and myself took part in. It's really encouraging actually to see internal officer development taken seriously. So I'd just like to say well done to all the staff who organised that. So on the local government reorganisation launch that we had last Thursday, I just have a question on how the response is going so far and whether we're getting a decent amount of engagement. Thank you.
Councillor Simpson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In a reply to a question presented, which will be coming on a bit later, presented by Councillor Dawson, you state in an answer that any new model of government in Lincolnshire will require a new style local plan to cover its geography. Bearing in mind that there are 2 years left before East Lindsey disappears into oblivion, can you make some assurance to members that this is not one of the reasons for the delay in the local plan? Because it seems a little perverse that we should spend so much time on developing a local plan only for it to be unravelled under a new authority. The other question I'd like to ask, has the Executive Board had any input or comment with regards to the current consultation on reforming the planning committees and delegated powers? This consultation ends on the 23rd of July, and I would urge members to look that up and reply to it. In view of that, what are the views of the Executive Board in this matter, and do they reflect those of the elected members throughout the council? We have had a very interesting talk by Mr. Andy Roberts a little while ago, and I feel, and I wondered if you could facilitate it, that members as a whole need a briefing on the development expectations that will spin off the back of this pylon development. There is actually some technical things which we found very interesting in this talk, you know, whether it's AC voltage, DC voltage will make a considerable amount of difference as to which option you can do. And I feel that members, in order to reply to the consultation in August, need to be better informed. And I would really like the opportunity for Mr. Roberts to be able to address the whole of the council to offer his knowledge which he has acquired in this matter. One of the things that he did go on to mention were data centres, these huge data centres, artificial information and all of this, these massive data projects. And another matter of concern about that, of course, is these data facilities use a huge amount of water, which is a matter of concern for our area, the management of water. And we need to understand what is the spin-off from this development. It's not simply just hanging a few cables on some posts. It's the spin-off and the impact, and we need to be better informed about it. And we also need to fully understand what the development proposals that are coming along, because in discussions, just talking to a land agent not so long ago, the applications coming in for wind turbines and solar panel farms are already, you know, moving along. We need to have some idea about this. You know, what's this plot of land on the other side of the Wolds going to look like in a very short space of time? Thank you very much, sir.
Councillor Bristow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say absolutely agree with what the leader said about the National Grid. I was on a call with them a few weeks ago. I couldn't see the slides, let alone ask any questions. But they were quoting figures of 4.2 and 4.6 billion for an underground model and a offshore model, as opposed to the 1.3 billion that the pylons are. And I would put it that if it's amortized over the 60 years that they plan it to be, that we're talking pennies. So again, I think that the National Grid, of course, it's beholden to its stockholders, is being very short-sighted at the expense of the people of Lincolnshire. And the leader's 100% correct. They don't care. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hesketh.
Yeah, I just want to recognise and thank Councillor Devereux for putting on the session about grants. the room was absolutely chock-a-block with local organisations looking to solve a problem that they've got locally. So thank you for that, and I encourage us to do more of that and make as much money available so that local people can solve problems locally. When they're empowered, I think our own communities and parishes can make a great difference. I welcome your proposal on the local government reform, the positive engagement of the proposal. And I ask, will you provide some training so that those who are supporting this proposal, like I am, that we can become your ambassadors and advocates to do that with our parishes and also with the wider community?
Thank you. Councillor Mossop.
Yeah, following on the local government reform, I'm glad we've taken the lead on this, and thank you for doing so. It's such a pity that the consultation takes place over the busy period of summer and harvest, although I realise and appreciate that time is of the essence. But one has to bear in mind that certainly in the rural areas, parish councils tend to take a break over the period that this consultation is taking place. And it's a very difficult sell, and rather like Councillor Hesketh has already said, you know, the democratic deficit will be very evident when we disappear in 2 years' time. And we do need to hear from parish councils and how they are to convey their feelings to their elected representatives in the future as we disappear. So how will this work in terms of area committees or whatever? And I would also ask and suggest that we have like a one-page, simple one-page briefing sheet that we can take to our parish councils and a list of probably frequently asked questions that we can take along so that we can answer the questions and many questions that I'm getting about where you're going to be in 2 years' time, because I won't be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Danny Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Leyland, for your report. Very thorough, and I totally agree on the pylons. I think it is going to be devastating for Lincolnshire. It's opening the door to an area full of solar panels, wind turbines, and whatever else they can bring along. The County Council has not changed its policy on anything to do with the pylons. We continue to fight them all the way. Yeah, so basically we are against them because it is going to destroy Lincolnshire. At the moment, there's 25 NSIPs. When NSIPs came into law in 2010 to now, there's only been 110 nationally. Yet Lincolnshire has now got 25. All decisions made by the government, not us. So I think it's ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to respond really to the valid criticisms of Councillor Arnold with regard to Vintage on Sea. Fair enough. As a member of the Sutton Events Group and an organiser of Vintage on Sea, it's not perfect. We do our best. To a certain extent, it's a victim of its own success. There are too many stalls. Certainly, location of those stalls and their proximity to fellow business owners in Sutton High Street will be certainly something we'll look at for next year. I think the key takeaway from the event is it was organised by a team of officers, residents and business owners, brilliantly led by Sam Burgess from the council, who's doing an awful lot of hard work to get the Sutton Colonnade to realise its potential. And Lindsay Allett also did an amazing job in getting the vintage cinema set in the Merridale Hall. And the overriding thing is that, to me, this is an exemplar of cooperation between council and residents to everyone's benefit. And I think it should be noted as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Leonard.
Thank you. Just a quick questions, nice and short and sweet, as you say. £175,000 for consultants. Where is that money coming from, please? I understand all the processes, etc., but will at any stage we have a vote on anything in respect of that same subject? And thank you to the Honourable Lady for Rugby, thank you. When we had the presentation online the other night, I was deeply concerned by the fact of the proposed government recommendations on the number of councillors cutting down from In one case, over 400 to just over 100. I mean, that is just preposterous. And it just goes to show how out of touch this government is. And given what Councillor Brooks has just said about the destruction of Lincolnshire, will the Mr. Ed Miliband be making the same destruction as he did with a bacon sandwich? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David Hall.
Okay. Nothing about baking sandwiches, unfortunately. Due to the reforming of the flood funding, there's a consultation finishing on the 29th. What is our council doing about it? The consultation on the flood funding.
Thank you. Councillor Mackens-Saunders.
Well, Mr. Lane, or Councillor Lane, I do beg your pardon, have our market towns actually dropped off the map? I know climate change is always on everybody's minds, but there's never any good news from our market towns in your reports. And lots of stuff does go on, but it doesn't appear to reach the higher echelons. And I know you're a tall man, so it's going to be even higher, but we would like some good news. And we'd like to know that money is being spent on our market towns, please, as well. Councillor Devereux, I'm sorry I missed your funding event. I just wondered if it might be a travelling roadshow that you could bring round to the sticks, because not everybody is that excited about coming to Horncastle. Strange as somebody over there might find that. And as for the pylons, this is going to be the greatest change to our landscape since the Ice Age, which is really quite saying something, isn't it? We're going to see the industrialisation of our once beautiful rural area. And perhaps we should be fighting here for food first, because you can have all the power you like, but if you don't have any food in your belly, you're going to die, aren't you? And we provide 20, well, depends which numbers you look at, 29% of the country's food comes from Lincolnshire, something we're really rather proud of. So, you know, the pylons are going to make such a difference. It's the add-ons, and when we're told that the substations at places like Bilsby are going to be as big as Alford, I think everybody in this room should be scared to death. I'm going to go home quite depressed by having learnt about some of those things. And it's not the countryside that we know and love. Tourism will be a thing of the past. And places like Louth, we rely greatly on tourism, and the inland areas do just as much as the coast. I just think National Grid needs to take a rain check. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor Leyland, you want to respond? Oh, sorry, Councillor McNally.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick one. On the pylon maps, would it be possible for someone to overlay them on the flood maps? Because there's a bit of me that thinks actually all the overhead structures are going on the non-flood risk areas, and then in the end we'll end up with all the solar panels, battery storage units along the actual coastline. So it'd be nice to just have a bit of an overlay against flood maps.
Thank you. Councillor Davey.
Thanks, Chairman. Just a thought and observation for Councillor Leyland. We've talked tonight about the value of tourism for this district, particularly coastal tourism. Is any work going to be commissioned to understand the devaluation in terms of the tourism asset if these pylons and substations are built? Because it's my personal view, and I've expressed this previously when I was a member of the County Council, that if this pylon line goes ahead, the value of coastal tourism will probably be halved at best. And once you do not have an economic asset, the argument for defending it also goes away. And we end up with a double hit, i.e. the destruction of the landscape and the devaluation of the coast to the point it gets abandoned. If we have not done that economic assessment work, I would urge the leader and the council to be prepared to spend some money on doing that work. So we are ready for that argument when it comes to the public inquiry.
Thank you. Is that it? Any more? No, Councillor Leyland, please.
Mr. Chairman, do you mind if I remain seated? It's just
Yes,
easier to keep track of my notes. Councillor Arnold, you've had a response from Councillor Watson about those issues. I still maintain it was a very good event, and as you did as well. But hopefully those issues can be reconciled with Councillor Watson in future events. National Grid, thank you for your support on that. Councillor Jackson, thank you for your comments on that in respect of the officer development. In respect of LGR, the engagement, you asked about engagement. That will be a continuing process as we go through the plan, and it ensures that we listen to as many stakeholders as possible so that we can put the flesh on the bones, if you like, of that, what our bid will be, so that it makes perfect sense to everyone across the county. It's not just a district proposal, it's a county proposal. If I've missed some of the points that you've made, asked, I'll happily talk to you afterwards. Councillor Simpson, in respect of the local plan, you're right. It's an ongoing process that we're involved with, and I'm sure the portfolio holder will happily update you afterwards. It is ongoing, but you are right about the potential of confusion as we approach a new authority and what that will mean. And also, we've got to consider the potential strategic planning powers of the mayoral authority as well. So again, probably something that Councillor Ashton can update councillors on by email afterwards in terms of the work that's being done at the moment. That's ongoing. There is no connection between the two things. It is, you know, we are working on this, the local plan, but the LGR stuff obviously has come into play with all the government indications of where they want to be. Some of that is contradictory over time. So we basically have to wait for the dust to settle to fully understand what they're on about. It does seem slightly perverse that we'll be working for a plan that's going to disappear when something else appears in terms of structure. In terms of member briefings, I too have spoken to Andy Robertson. It's very educational to listen to him in depth because there are so many things that are connected to this, and that was mentioned in my report, that actually this is a lead on to many other things coming on. So I'm quite happy to organise a briefing for councillors. It would have to be at fairly short notice, most likely online, but I think that would be most welcome, and happily set that up if that's what councillors feel is necessary. And I quite agree. I think it's not unreasonable for that to go forward. Let's not forget actually the changes to planning, such as the change in consultation, the change in the way that planning committees will be structured, the change in who delegates decisions to where, is a massive change. And it's no coincidence this is happening when we're getting these large scale proposals coming through, because the distance between resident and decision maker is getting further and further apart. And that should be a concern to all of us in this council. Councillor Bristow, yeah, thank you for your comments on the pylons. We will gather that information as needed. Unfortunately, I can't necessarily read the bit of scroll that I put down here, which was your second point, but if you come to me after the meeting, I'll quite happily bring that through. Councillor Hesketh, thank you for your comments from regarding the funding evening, and I welcome your observation about having informed councillors that can be ambassadors for our bid, and that's something I'll happily take up with our officers to make sure that we have proper briefing papers in a timely fashion, so that we can have well-informed district councillors going into communities to make sure that this is fully explained. And again, Councillor Mossop, you've sort of mentioned the same issue about consultation and the timing, unfortunately out of our hands, but we will do all that we can to make sure that the consultation is as wide as possible, recognising that the challenges of the summer holidays and any suggestions from councillors would be welcome. We need to be very flexible on this, as in effect as much as we can. In terms of the frequently asked questions. There is on the website and on the coded site that draws up when you use the QR code some FAQs. That will obviously evolve over time. And again, quite happy to do all that we can to make sure that that's updated. Councillor Brooks, encouraged by your comments, I think the issue about how many NSIPs now exist is worrying. And as I said in my report, we know that land is being bought up by potential energy companies to make sure that they're ready to tap into this potential grid that's coming down our coast. I am encouraged by your answer. I do hope that that will be legally challenged, the information that they've provided, so that that can be brought up at the inquiry.
We're over time, Councillor.
I have a few more questions. I'm quite happy to, I'm sorry I can't get to, I had so many questions. I've got 5 more to go through.
Okay. Yes, councillors agree.
Thank you. Councillor Watson, again, thank you for your comments, constructive comments on that, and wish you well with future events. Councillor Leonard, yes, we have taken out through the exec board decision £175,000 to do the consultation work in the run up to our submission. That money has come from various reserves, and I'm sure the chief exec will happily inform you exactly where that's come from. But £175,000 does sound a lot of money, and it is. But in terms of what we're planning for, this is a 50-year plus solution to our current council structure. So it's got to be right. We've got to engage the right people, and unfortunately that does cost. In terms of the vote, the way that this proposal was sent by government, it is in the way that it's worded and the way that it's landed with us, it is an executive decision, and the monitoring officer can give you chapter and verse on that, but it is an executive decision. What I can hopefully give you some comfort with this is that I will bring every stage of the consultation, or we will bring every stage of the consultation and the work that we get for our proposal to this council to consider, and so that there's full understanding. This is in effect a competitive process, and we saw that today because we had the biggest banner and poster up at the event, and the council were next to us. And it's interesting that even though we've launched our bid, were the first out, there were other councils there also effectively launching their bids to make sure that the information was out there. So this will be an interesting process as we all sit around the table as districts and county council to make sure that we get all the information we can from government, but recognising we are all doing our own thing to make sure our proposals go forward for the benefit of our residents. Fully take your concern about the number of councillors. And that's one of the reasons that we're working so hard with parish councils and town councils and also LALC to have a real understanding of how we can model the best representation for parishes locally and for residents, and to understand what powers parishes will need in the future and what they would be willing to take on, and also to elevate the role of parish and town councils into a professional, not that they're not professional, but in terms of where they stand in the future in terms of allowances and all the things that we need to consider. So it is a vast piece of work which we need to have full understanding on. Councillor Hall, I will, my colleague on the exec board, Councillor Ashton, has, I tell you what, I'll ask him to contact you directly to give you an update on that particular consultation. His handwriting is marginally better than mine, but no worse than no worse than a doctor's. Councillor Mason Sanders, market towns, yes, happily update on market towns, and please don't think that there's no money being spent on market towns. There are with various schemes that we're involved with in the various grants that we have. I do take your point about the industrialisation of this great district and county of ours, and the food security issue is a very real one. Councillor McNally, I will transit your comment through to Councillor Ashton to make sure that we understand where these flood maps overlay and what the issues are in terms of where this puts the potential siting of renewable energy sources. Councillor Daly, thank you for your observation on that. Value to tourism. We are obviously doing a technical report on the planning response. Part of that will be the ED impact, but if rest assured that if we do need to if we do need to take further consultants' advice, then we will do. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for indulgence.
Thank you, Councillor Island. So that item was for noting, so there is no vote required on that one. So I'll move on to item 8, which is to consider approval of the 2024-25 draft outturn finance update.
Thank you, Chairman. In Councillor Kemp's absence, I will be presenting this report, and if there's any technical questions, Chief Exec will be happy to pick those up. So the recommendations are before you. It is recommended that this council notes the general fund draft outturn position for 24-25 being an understand of £874,000 as detailed in Table 1 of Appendix A, and approves the transfer of the surplus to the investment volatility reserve. Recommendation 2 is to approve the reserves transactions and balances as set out in Appendix A, Table 3 for 24-25, and recommendation 3 approves the capital phasing from 24-25 to 25-26 presented in Table 4C, along with the capital additions for 25-26. And the reason for the recommendations is to ensure the Council's draft outturn financial position for 24-25 is considered and related to decisions approved. And it is important that full Council are aware of the financial position of the General Fund to ensure that we can make informed decisions that are affordable and financially sustainable for the future. And this just continues the good work of our finance team and portfolio holder to manage our finances. So those are the recommendations, Chair. Happy to propose them.
Thank you. So that's proposed by Councillor Leyland. Have we a seconder, please?
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh. Thank you. Councillor Jackson. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. A few points. Well, page 31 at the bottom, there is a something that's mentioned on the table, table 1B at the bottom. It mentions solar PV worth 171k as a budget emission, and I'd like an explanation of that, please. And the second point is I'd just like to note that the third item that we're being asked to vote on isn't just pure capital slippage into the next year. There's also an amount on page 38 of 552,000 of internal borrowing that we're being asked to approve as well. Just to make sure that everyone is aware of that and the reasons for that. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jackson. Councillor Mussop.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lane. It's pity not to see Councillor Tom Kemp here, really. I think we do need reassurance from the Treasury that he's got his eye on the ball, because we haven't seen him at audit and governance for a while, and it'd be really nice to see him there. I just wondered on page 34 on number 6 of the agenda, can you explain on the carbon reduction reserve, maybe this is a technical question for Chief, or maybe Councillor Marsh actually, can you explain why there's been a use of our reserves in the carbon reduction reserve for Boston Borough Council and South Holland District Council to the tune of £121,000? Because I hope we haven't been giving them something without getting something back. And on the next page, on page 35, this is really more of a comment, but a bit of concern really. In the approved budget, we for disabled facilities grants on the capital programme, we approved 3.7 million. The outturn has been 2.7 million. Is that due to slippage? Because one of the things back in the early noughties, we were very concerned about the speed in which we were getting DFGs applied for and the time it took for them to be carried out. So I hope we're not slipping back on that in any way or shape or form, because we did get that up to date. I think through overview we pushed hard for that to be repaired and moved forward, and now it seems that it might be just slippage again, and that's disappointing. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Mackey-Systems.
You'd be really excited to know, Councillor Leyland, that I've got 4 questions for you. In the finance summary, there's sums of money mentioned. How do we ensure that under local government review, this money doesn't go to other more profligate areas? On the next, on the same page, it's contributing the second bullet point in 2.1. After allocating 168,000 to section 106 long-term liabilities, what might they be, please? Because I have no clue whatsoever. On the next page, sorry,
What page number was that?
that was on the first page. In the key financial issues, about the second bullet point down, it's you can see where it says S106, and that was what I was referring to. Yeah, you got that? On the following page, on page 30, where we look at general fund assets, what is the management fee payable to Invest East Lindsey offset by BP Pulse income? What on earth is BP Pulse income, please? Well, perhaps somebody will explain. So people seem to understand a lot more than I know. Sadly, it's sad to see markets doing so badly, affected by poor weather. I would say it was poor management. At least we've got some people interested in markets now, and we might see that turned round. And on page 34, Wellbeing Reserve, LCVS funding of 31,000. I'm rather disappointed. They're the people that tell us where to get grants from. Can they not find some for themselves?
Councillor Leyland.
Mr. Chairman, I will have to refer to the Chief Exec for some of these answers because they're very technical in detail, and obviously the report is very detailed. Can I ask for some clarity from the?
Yeah, I'll try my best, councillors. The questions don't directly relate to the recommendations, so I will be a bit patchy on some of the answers. So if it's acceptable, there's 1 or 2 that we'll come back on outside the meeting. I think Councillor Jackson, you asked a question about internal borrowing. Internal borrowing is a usual tool for local authorities where it's more advantageous to borrow internally than it is to go out to the market to borrow. So that shouldn't be a surprise. It's something quite ordinary. Sorry, I thought you asked a question about internal borrowing that you referenced. Oh, statement. Okay. Well, let's move on then. I think there's a question there about the accountable relationship that we have with Boston and South Holland in terms of carbon grants. That wouldn't be nothing more than we're the accountable body who's undertaking that work. So there's no expense that's incurred by East Lindsey District Council on that. In terms of disabled facility grants, it's been quite normal over the past few years that we have a budget increase as the year goes on. So inevitably that means that we don't have time to excuse me, respond and expend that money before the end of the year. But there will be a certain amount that's committed there that's work in progress. So I imagine we'll see that most years. There was a question about the BP Pulse income that will relate to the EV charging provision that we have in some of our car parks. And I think Councillor Mackey-Systems, you asked a question about LCVS. I mean, that will be part of our kind of capacity funding that enables them to do that work for fundraising for other organisations. There's one question there, I think, from Councillor Jackson around the solar comment, and I think there was also one there about Section 106 liability, which I'll have to come back on both of those points, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Exec. So on the basis that there are some questions to be clarified and answered, I hope that I can ask for the support for the paper this evening. It's a detailed paper. Unfortunately, just picking up on Councillor Mossop's point about the presence of Councillor Kemp, I do understand his concerns, but I'm assured that actually Councillor Kemp is a very diligent portfolio, but he does have a full-time job as a solicitor, which takes them all over the country. So we do have to have some understanding of that as well.
Thank you, Councillor Leyland. So we move, Councillor Leyland has proposed this. Have we got a seconder, please? Councillor Marsh. And the recommendations are as listed on page 25. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Thank you, councillors. That motion is carried. So item 9, the annual Treasury report, to receive and review the Treasury annual report for 2024 and 25. Councillor Leyland, I think it falls on.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Thank you. So we have this paper before us. It is actually a very technical presentation in terms of the Treasury annual report, and this has been through audit and governance, and it's here before you. So the recommendations are that the Council receives and approves the Treasury annual report for 24-25 at Appendix 1, as required by the Local Government Act 2003, following scrutiny by the Audit and Governance Committee at their meeting on the 26th of June. And that is, and the reasons for this recommendation is that Council is required to produce a Treasury annual report after the end of each financial year in accordance with the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy's Code of Practice on Treasury Management. I'm not going to say much more on that, Mr. Chairman. If there are any questions of a technical nature, I'm sure they can be answered after, but also probably referred to the Audit and Governance Committee Chair, who actually has seen this paper go through the committee. Thank you.
So that has been proposed by Councillor Leyland. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Prescott, thank you. All those in favour? No, sorry. Anybody wish to speak? Oh, Councillor Makinson-Sanders.
Thank you. Right, Invest East Lindsey loans aren't due to mature until some of them until 2042. We will be probably dead by then, or the sea will have come in, or something will have happened. What happens to the repayment of those loans once East Lindsey disappears as an authority, please?
Councillor Leonard.
Thank you. So in respect of...
No, he's got a question.
Sorry, just to furthermore to that, just something that's popped in my brain. Once East Lindsey District Council has vanished essentially, and the loan repayments continue, what happens if Invest East Lindsey collapses as a company? And who is going to try and retrieve the assets at that point? What is between this council and the loan now, and any new council set in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chair. So effectively, it relates to the same issue about what happens in the future as our council disappears. Debt and loans are all part of the funding issues that government have to raise and understand with the local government review. I'm going to refer to Chief Exec to give a slightly more technical answer on that, but the fact is that is part of what has to be considered. And we are fortunate in this council of not having significant debt or issues with loans. So there are councils in a far worse position than we are, given our success with our financial management. So I'll just refer to the Chief Exec. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, councillor. So, I mean, it's really simple. Everything that the council owes or owns will transfer to a new entity. So nothing really changes. To the new entity, yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Raise a point of order, if I may. On the note of what you've just said, company law would denote if that, depending on their company structure, once we've gone, the onus isn't quite the same. So if they change their business structure after you've gone as the current monitoring body, who's to say that they can't dispose of the assets and then liquidate the company?
The ownership of the company sits with this council. It will then sit with the new council. So the parameters of what the company can and can't do just don't change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Councillor Leyland has already proposed it. Have we got a seconder, please? Thank you. So all those in favour, please show. Those against? Any abstentions? None. Thank you. That item is carried. Okay, item 10. Annual overview and scrutiny committee report to be introduced by Councillor Fiona Martin.
Thank you, Chairman. It's my great pleasure to present once again the annual report from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, just for your comment and noting this evening. I don't propose to read it paragraph by paragraph, you'll be relieved to hear, but just to bring some points to your attention. On page 71 at the top, you will see on the list of regular items health scrutiny updates. And we're extremely lucky that Councillor Makinson Sanders does a superb job of representing this authority on the Health Scrutiny Committee at the County Council. Not only does she represent us, she brings us back extremely detailed and good reports for our consideration. And as you will all be aware, the health situation in Lincolnshire is one of great concern to all our residents and to us as an authority. So we do spend quite a lot of time looking at that and what happens. And I would like to put on record, I probably do it every year, but I would like to put on record our thanks to Councillor Meckinson Saunders for the excellent work that she does. It really is exemplary. And just on that point, we have at our meeting next week, anybody who hasn't yet seen the agenda for the Overview Committee, we do have Dr. Reid Baker from the Lincolnshire Local Medical Committee coming to talk to us about GP services in Lincolnshire. We spend a lot of time talking about hospitals and dentists and transport, but I think the GP situation in Lincolnshire is one of equal concern to us. So anybody who wants to come along and hear that next Tuesday will be very welcome. The other thing I would like to draw to your attention on the regular items list is the scrutiny topic submissions, because we do advertise every year for submissions. We don't get a vast influx of submissions from members, but we welcome them when we do. And I just wonder actually if Councillor Mossop's comments about DFGs this evening should actually go forward as a submission for looking at, because it is several years since we looked at DFGs and the position of this authority when it comes to DFGs, because we have in the past had quite a horrendous situation when it came to backlogs. So I would urge anybody who has a topic that they think we should be looking at, please put in a submission. Although we only advertise usually once a year, it's never too late, and we will take any submissions and look at scoping any suggestions at any meeting of overview. On the list of topics considered during the year, there's 2 or 3 in particular that, though they're listed as consideration during this year, will be ongoing because they are important things for this authority to look at. The top one, of course, is the update on enforcement, and that actually as well covers the caravan scrutiny that was done last year, that we are keeping a very close eye on, because it was a very good piece of work, very valuable to this authority and any new authority going forward. So I think we just need to make sure we keep an eye on that one. The other one is section 106 updates and our 106 obligations. That again is an ongoing piece of work that we will continue to look at, and I think we've got both those coming back in September for updates on where we're at with those recommendations. Another one that will actually be picked up again next year is the annual use of consultants. It was one we used to look at annually and we dropped off rather and missed a couple of years, but that will now come back again as an annual look at by the scrutiny committee. We do hold the executive board to account, or try to, when we can get them there. And I would in particular like to thank Councillor Marsh, because Councillor Marsh is a very regular attender at our overview meetings, and we do welcome you there, Councillor Marsh, and thank you for your attendance. The bottom of the page, number 7, page 72, the big piece of work, or one of the big pieces of work that's happened this year, is the Invest East Lindsey Limited, with a particular focus on Kingfisher Caravan Park. And that's a piece of work that took a long while. Am I running out of time, Mr. Chairman? Oh, sorry. I'll be as brief as I can. That was a good piece of work that, again, we're monitoring closely, and we will continue to monitor closely. So I'll leave the rest that I'd written down and just say I would like to thank the committee for the hard work that they've done during the year, and all the panels, because we do a lot of work by task and finish panel groups, and a lot of people have put a lot of hard work into that. I'd like to thank my Vice Chairman, Carleen Dickinson, for her excellent work during the year, and Laura, who clerks the committee, and Rebecca James in particular, who is a superb officer and who does a lot of work, not only just in East Lindsey, but across the partnership. And she really is superb. We wouldn't be able to achieve anything that we do without her. So on that, I will sit down and say I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Questions, please? Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. It's not much a question, it's an observation, Chair. Whilst I thank Councillor Martin for a report, I do look at topics considered during the year, and the first one there is update on enforcement. I've been a member of the licensing committee since 2007, apart from a 4-year break that I had last administration. Never have I known to have 2 meetings cancelled because there is no agenda. There is nothing to come forward to the licensing committee. I might suggest that could be possibly, as I understand it, we don't have an enforcement officer at the moment. So I don't know if you'd like to comment on that.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Mossop.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Martin. I think the trouble is some of us have been here for a very long time, and so we have long memories about DFGs of the past. But it's a good idea to bring that back in again, I think. But my comment was really about the upcoming activity as well, as what Councillor Horton has said. And I really do feel that perhaps exploring effective development opportunities and support for members is probably pales into insignificance about the momentous work that's ahead of us in terms of local government reform again. It's going to come on and on for two more years, but I really feel that overview has a key role in this, because we need to be tracking and monitoring what the executive board are proposing to do, the details of local government reform about how, for example, where our money is going, where our assets are going, and the transfer of our assets up to the new authority or down to smaller authorities. Those are really key issues as far as I'm concerned, and I want to see that they are what we've done and all this work we've done with Towns Fund and the huge assets that we've built up, are safeguarded for the future and not whittled away or lost through poor governance. So I feel that, you know, there needs to be some impetus taken, and I hope Councillor Martin will take this forward about how we deal from a backbencher point of view about local government reform.
Thank you. Councillor Makinson-Sanders.
Following on from what Councillor Mossop's just said, perhaps we could do a scrutiny into our legacy, to the legacy that we leave after we've gone. Sounds awful, doesn't it? It's like writing a will, but it'd be quite nice to look at that to see how we could best pass things on, and I think that just follows on from your suggestion.
Thank you. Any more questions? Oh, Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chair. Just to acknowledge the work of the Overview Committee and under Councillor Martin's chairmanship, I think the Executive Board do welcome the challenge, and we do welcome the challenge to us to make sure that we're doing what we need to do and make sure that's conveyed to councillors across this floor. Thank you for all her work and dedication to that with her officer team and also with their deputy chairman. Certainly some of the issues that are being discussed, I'm listening very carefully about where the concerns are. We've got a massive thing coming forward with LGR, and I think that's the Overview Committee with the ideal place to have as a fixed point of monitoring for that. So that's welcomed by the Executive. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. Just quickly, get some feedback there. I'd just like to thank Councillor. Is that it? Right. I'd just like to thank Councillor Martin for all her work as chair of the Audit and Governance Committee. We do work together quite closely and make sure that our respective committees are doing the work that they should be. And I think a lot of the work that Councillor Martin has done has made sure that her committee does, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but stays in its lane and ours stays in our lane. And I think a lot of that has been very helpful over the year, particularly when it comes to slight changes that we'll be making in future going forward in terms of the budget and the way that we work out the budget this year. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, would you like to respond?
Yes, please. Councillor Horton, I'm not quite sure what the cancellation of the licensing committee has got to do with Overview, but there is still, I know, an enforcement team in place, because I saw here the other day the lady Jo who leads that team up, so there is an enforcement team still in place. I'm not really sure what that has to do with cancellation of the licensing committee. Councillor Mossop. Well, there is enforcement officers. I'm sorry, but we do have enforcement officers. Councillor Mossop, you talked about sort of moving forward and looking at the local government review. And I will talk to Councillor Jackson because, as she just said, we do work closely together to make sure that we don't overlap each other's areas of interest and work. And I know that I think you've put it on local government review on your agenda for every meeting. So if it's on audit, I think we need to be clear about the difference between what audit's looking at and what Overview is looking at. So I'll have a conversation with Councillor Jackson about how we can achieve that. Councillor Makinson-Saunders, yes, quite happy to look at the legacy that this council is leaving. So perhaps we can fill in a topic suggestion form along with the DFG ones and any others that people think might be suitable for looking at and scrutiny. Thank you, and I ask you to note the report.
Thank you. So yes, that's just for noting, there's no vote required. We'll move on to item 11. It's a scrutiny panel report. So this is a review of support for towns and parishes across East Lindsey. Is Councillor Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll do a very quick, brief review because everything's on there already. This review explored the challenges faced by town and parish councils in East Lindsey, highlighting a clear sense of disconnect from the district council. Key concerns included poor communication, unclear officer roles, especially around the role of the monitoring officer. Findings reveal that many town and parish councils feel undersupported and excluded from meaningful decision-making, especially in planning. Councils also struggle to access timely advice and resources. To address this, the panel recommends clearer communication, better promotion of liaison services, more accessible training, and consideration of structural changes through community governance reviews. Strengthening these partnerships is crucial ahead of local government reform to ensure all councils are equipped to serve their communities effectively. We are calling upon this council to provide stronger leadership and clearer support to help town and parish councils serve their communities more effectively, especially as broader changes to local government take shape through LGR. The scrutiny panel are asking for three main areas of consideration in the way the district council deals with parish and town councils. I won't go into all the details, but I'll just basically mention it's to do with communication, how we communicate with town and parish councils, the support we hand out to these town and parish councils, and the explanation and support for the role of the monitoring officer and the democratic services. Any questions?
Thank
you
you
very much.
Councillor Yardley, any questions for Councillor Yardley? Councillor Hesketh?
Sorry, I've only been here 2 years and I didn't know that there was a town and parish liaison officer. Who is this person? And I wonder if there's any chance to meet them, because it must be a doddle of a job, because I don't know anybody who's actually seen them do anything.
Councillor Dawson?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for Councillor Yardley concerning, and it's on page 92, the area committees and the recommendation that there should be consideration given to this for local government reform. And I'm interested in support the recommendation that ELDC, as it says there, should investigate the need for area committees prior to formation of the new model of local government. That's the one that we are now engaged in, so it can't be prior to, but I think prior to the completion of the formation of the new model, I would agree. And I hadn't seen this report and this recommendation in particular before I wrote my question 13 and submitted it. And so we're covering the same ground I support therefore this recommendation. My question for Councillor Yardley is, how would you go on to suggest this should be done and when? Because the point of my question 13 will come up later is that this process of forming these area committees, or at least, as you say, investigating the need for them and how they can be formed, ought to be running in parallel with the engagement process that we've heard about. There's no need, in my view, to wait for the engagement process to be completed before actively involving in local councils, as you've suggested and recommended we ought to be doing. So it's a question of timing and how that should be done. And it seems to me there's no reason why we can't be, with district councillors taking the lead in their own wards, laying the groundwork, as Councillor Leyland has said, for future area committees. No reason why we can't be doing that on an informal basis, instead of just waiting for the engagement process and to complete and the formal proposal to come along. So would you agree with a sort of an informal parallel process where we can get started on this work right away?
Councillor Leonard?
Thank you. Just to say that we used to have a Louth area committee and that just became the usual talking shop. It was never any functional thing about it at all. You might as well not bothered, wasted everybody's time. And secondly, as an ex-town councillor, I would imagine at this point in time that certain members of Louth Town Council, because they don't have the liaison with the district council, will be sat there a bit like the poor relation waiting for auntie to die and leave all the money to them. That's how they'll see the district council, and it's like the crumbs on the table. What are you going to throw them? Are you going to give them car parks? Are you going to give them toilets? That is how they think. You need to be getting in there, liaising with them and telling them that they're not going to get all the assets that they think they're going to get, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. I was on this scrutiny with Councillor Yardley, and I can assure you we had very lively conversations about what the role of town, parish and district councillors. But actually, I just wanted to pick up Councillor Hesker's point. We did have a liaison officer. His name was Geoffrey Kenyon, and he would go around the town council set up meetings. We had 4 at Mablethorpe and Sutton Town Council. I don't know what happened anywhere else, but I definitely met the man, but he's not here anymore.
Thank you. Councillor Leyland. Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this report. I think some of the things that have been suggested will be helpful. And in terms of the discussion about area committees being reinstated, I've heard a word of caution about what the function is and what they will do. I would also give caution as well about the timing of this, because if we set something up now, we are going to be moving into a new structure, and it would be premature to do something now that would probably give engagement to parishes locally, but we have to understand what happens across the whole changed geography. One thing I would say, we had a chief exec, myself, and a leader of South Holland met with the directors of Louth today. And one of the key concerns was exactly how parish and town councils are engaged in the process, what powers they need to have, what they need to understand their role will be, given where they've been thus far in terms of well-meaning volunteers joining the parish council, now being burdened with quite considerable responsibilities and time requirements. And that has to be really carefully handled. And we've had an agreement with Louth that we'll be in constant contact with them through this dialogue process. So I take the point, but we need to carefully handle it. And I think, some of the suggestions in here about, greater communication, I'll have to take that as what we need to do. Quite happy to acknowledge that. But in terms of the LGR engagement side of it, that needs to be really carefully understood and handled so that when we do land something, it works, it delivers for the parish councils, it delivers for communities, so that it's not something that we have to keep revisiting to tweak or whatever. Because as Councillor Leonard pointed out, and I heard a few comments from behind about the effectiveness of area committees when they were in place, certainly they weren't as effective as they probably were intended. And that's not through any lack of will, it was just what they became in terms of talking shops and not a lot being done. The neighbourhood area committees, which the government suggests should happen, however that lands and how that engagement lands with parish councils, we need to make sure it works and is real, because there will be a lot of people thinking, goodness me, I didn't ask for this responsibility. Let's make sure that it works. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mackison-Saunders.
I was under the impression that Mr. Kenyon was an officer doing vital and viable, but obviously I got the wrong end of the stick. I've been here even longer than Councillor Hesketh, and I had no clue there was anybody in that role. They've never been introduced to us. We haven't had any feedback about it, and it says they come to Louth. I've been on Louth Town Council for 20 odd years. I didn't know about that either. So area committees, I thought, were a failure, because you would have clusters, and the villages really were the little minnows. And they got the crumbs off the table, and you'd have a big council, a bigger council like Louth, that would all be about Louth. And so if you're one of the villages, you hardly got any time doing it. And I can't see how we're going to overcome with the whole idea from the government is to have neighbourhoods, because that's what the 10-year health plan's about, and it's all about establishing neighbourhoods. And I can bore you, Richard, with how they're going to do that, and health service as well. But it's all about if it's about communities, I just think we're going to struggle. I thought this was an interesting report, and I did learn some things from it, but it doesn't get over the fact that when I go to Louth Town Council, I have to stick up for the district council every blooming time. There is so much antipathy to this district council, it's not true. You know, if it's section 106s I'm defending, planning I'm defending, everything, that it is a whipping boy. And I think that's a shame. And I think that boils down to communications. And I think our communications with the other tier are not good. And I think that is something, I think it came out with the peer group thing. Communications we are not good at, we ought to be better at. But thank you for the report. It was interesting and I've learned something.
Councillor Yardley, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. Right, first, Councillor Hesketh, and I will deal with that. I think Councillor Arnold's already mentioned the liaison officer, and Councillor Mackinson Sanders mentioned the liaison officer, so I'll take those three questions together. There was a liaison officer. His only job was.
Can I just interrupt you, Councillor Yards? I believe Councillor Jackson wanted to make a comment or ask a question.
Sorry.
So sorry to interrupt you, Flo. There, just wanted to bring up. Thank you, Chair. Page 89, you talk about community governance reviews, which doesn't make it to the recommendations, but I thought that was quite important, because at the beginning of this report it mentions that there's 163 parishes, and I think that is absolutely unmanageable. One of the things that the government's guidance on community government reviews tells us is that it's quite a bad idea to do them at the same time as something like LGR. So the best time to be doing them will be right now. But I have serious concerns about the resources already that the monitoring officer has. Because in order to do a community governance review, it's quite a lot of work. So I would like to thank Councillor Yardley and everyone else on the panel for bringing this to our attention. I'm not really sure what we need to do about that going forward, because it's quite an involved issue. But it has been a very useful report, and I'd just like to thank Councillor Yardley and everyone else who took part for bringing this information to us. Thank you.
Councillor Martin, you want to ask a question?
Not ask a question really, it's make a statement, but just to thank Councillor Yardley and her team for the excellent work that they did on this, because it was a big piece of work actually, and they did communicate with the parish councils. So this is something that's come from the parish council, a lot of the recommendations that are in here. But it will of course now go to the relevant portfolio holder for comments, and then come back to overview for the recommendations to be put in the tracker and tracked. So just like to thank Councillor Yardley and her team really.
Thank you. Councillor Yardley, would you like to respond? Yeah.
Right. Right. Right, okay. With regards to the liaison officer, this was not a dedicated role. He actually had a separate job. He did various different things. One aspect of his role was also a liaison officer. None of us actually knew he existed. I found out for the first time at the scrutiny panel. He spent a lot of time, I believe, in Mablethorpe, and I think he was also in Alford and Louth, but you've said you've never seen him. So, well, that's the feedback we got. With regards to area committees that Councillor Dawson mentioned, I do agree with you about laying the foundation informally, and I don't think there's anything to stop us there. However, the reason we mentioned this as part of one of our recommendations was the fact that these things need to be measured and it needs to be done across the district. And I think the only way to do that would be in a formal sort of setting. And I think one of the conversations we had about area committees, and I know multiple people over here have mentioned them, was the debate whether they were useful or they were not. I was not around in this council or actually in this country when area committees were a thing in East Lindsey. And I think there was a lot of varying feedback as to whether they were useful, they were not. We've spoken to multiple people about them. And I think that's the reason why we said it needs to be investigated, because we're not necessarily sure how useful or effective they're going to be in the long run. I also know that the government have sort of are leaning towards that. And I think we do need to take very seriously what they're recommending as part of the LGR process. So I think this is something that would have to be looked at properly. Councillor Leonard, you said something about poor relations, parish councillors or parish councils are the poorer relations. I agree with you. We actually said that exactly in our report. That came across very, very clearly from all the conversations. We had a survey that we did. It was sent out to all the parish councils. I sent emails out to every single one who responded back. There were quite a few responses, but not as many as the 163 parishes that we currently have. And many of them said this, that the lack of communication was a big problem. However, we have also found that while there was a lack of communication, very often people weren't actually getting in touch with the right department. And one of the things within our communication recommendation was that we need to look at our website to make that more accessible, so people are not hunting around. And very recently, actually, myself, I was looking for something, I forget for what, for business support, and I had to actually go through various different emails, and they were all wrong. And I've come back with something else. So I can understand the frustration that they feel. And I think this is something that we can very easily look at and fix, and it's part of our recommendation. So hopefully that will be looked at. What else? And I think that was pretty much it. Thank you very much. If anybody has any other questions, very happy to answer them. Send us an email. We'll look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Yardley. So that item was just for noting. So we move on to item 12, committee seats review.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The establishment of a new political group has required a revision to the allocation of seats. There are two appendices attached to the paper. The first, Appendix A, deals with the allocation of seats to political groups, and Appendix B looks at the allocations of elected members to those groups. There are two items that I'd just like to update members on in addition to the papers that you have. Please note the following update to Appendix A. The following committee seats have been exchanged, which retains a current proportionality. And these are: the seat allocated to the Reform Group on Overview Committee is now allocated to the East Lindsey Progressives and will be taken by Councillor Robert Watson. The seat allocated to the East Lindsey Progressives on Employment Committee is now allocated to the Reform Group and will be taken by Councillor Danny Brooks. In addition, there's just an update to Appendix B on the advice by the group leader, and I think that is for the East Lindsey Independent Group, just to confirm the Planning Committee councillor appointments. That will be Councillor Eyre, Councillor Macmillan and Councillor Yardley. So thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Executive. So we need to vote on that. Need a proposer, please.
Councillor, just to clarify, we'd usually go for a proposer and seconder before inviting members to speak.
Proposer then, please, Councillor Leyland.
Happy to propose, Chair.
Councillor Arnold. Right, councillor Magison-Sanders.
Thank you. In the recent local elections, one of Reform's loudest national messages was they intend to hold councils to account. But what's happening here in East Lindsey? We've seen the Reform group happy to relinquish their responsibilities to be on an overview committee whose main responsibility is to hold the executive to account by giving up their seat. I don't get it. I think it's really sad that we haven't got out of a party of 4 or 5 councillors that they can't come along and come to overview and play their role in what they fought an election on. And it really makes me angry about this, because we all have a responsibility to our ratepayers, and we have a responsibility to come and to be on committees and to work hard for our ratepayers here. And to go on to it, and then I'm going to go on to taking a seat on the employment committee. The employment committee has not met since 2017. That is 8 years. What's the point of having an employment committee, quite honestly, that it's taking up? I know Councillor Ross Jackson's on it, I'm on it, I think Councillor Mossop's on it. That's using up seats. We're not playing a part in anything. It's a useless, redundant committee. And I just think, what on earth are we doing? We want to take over Lincolnshire and we can't even get our committee structure right. It's really poor. And I think the governance needs looking at here. But I'm really sorry to criticise Reform. I don't want to be nasty, but I think they have a responsibility to their ratepayers to be there, speaking up and challenging the executive, what they do. Thank you.
Councillor Danny Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say that every Reform councillor in this council has a committee seat. I'm pretty sure that not every councillor in every other group has a committee seat. So I do think we are doing our bit. The other point I'd like to make is we all work for a living. If you put meetings in the day, it becomes extremely difficult for us to make those meetings, especially when we've already got a committee each. So if you want to move them to an evening, we'd quite happily take part and have an extra committee so that one of our members has 2 committees and not just one. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Leonard.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that, because that's always been my gripe with this council. If you want all the players in the ring at once, you need to make them accessible for them to be in the ring. I work for a living. I can't be on lots of committees because I can't be free in the daytime. You know, it just doesn't add up. Other councils don't always meet in the day. The whole thing with this council seems to be, if you don't work or you've got the time in the day, you're on a winner. If you work, forget it. You'll be shoved in where you can. And what's the point? Because we're not representing everybody. And I'm sorry if that's an inconvenience to officers, senior executives, or whatever. They've got to travel in the dark. I have to travel in the dark if it's an evening meeting. I couldn't care less. They're paid a lot of money, staff are paid, and I want them in the evenings. That would be the perfect scenario. You get all the players in the ring, everybody's available, end of story. But still, we do it the old way because we don't want to change, but we're going to have to change, I can assure you.
Yep. No more speakers, right? So, yeah. Oh, councillor Barton.
Yeah, just to be clear, when I first joined this council, everything was during the day. Even this meeting would have been in the daytime as well. And over the years, we have come to a hybrid situation where we meet some during the day, some at night. It's the same with the scrutiny panels. We try and have some of those meeting at the night, in the evenings as well, because we are aware that people do work full time still, and we want to encourage younger people to participate. So we have moved to, over the years, to a hybrid system where we're not always meeting during the day as we always used to.
Thank you. So we have a seconder proposed. Councillor Ashton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just add to this debate that I did take quite the bold decision a couple of years ago to move planning policy into the evening in order to honour that request from members. Some are here, some who have left council at the last election, that request that they would appreciate a committee meeting in the evening. Obviously, the committee is well subscribed, but I do have a standing invitation. If there's something on the agenda which particularly appeals to the interests of members or in members' wards, then they are very welcome to come. So I hope to see you all there next time.
Thank you. I'll make that the final speaker. So the recommendation that we're voting on is that the council approves the revised allocation of seats to political groups as detailed in Appendix A and appointments to committees as detailed in Appendix B with the amendment from the Chief Executive. So those in favour? Against? Abstention? That's carried. That's carried then, thank you. Right, item 13 is motions on notice. To receive motions on notice under Council Procedure Rule 12. So motion 1, that this council requests that the executive endeavours that only peat-free compost is used for all horticultural purposes undertaken by the council, including activities carried out by contractors on behalf of the council, and specify that all organisations receiving grants from the council must not use peat in any form. That was proposed by Councillor Robert Watson. Councillor Leonard.
Oh, thank you. I wondered if perhaps we could create another role to monitor this, maybe another £40,000 a year post. If you look in the law, you'll find that by 2026, domestically, people can't.
Councillor Leonard, sorry to interrupt, but we usually have a process where Councillor Watson would be introduced.
Sorry, I was called. It was my call.
It wasn't your mistake.
Yes.
But, so I think, Chairman, we'd usually invite Councillor Robert Watson to introduce his motion.
Yeah. So Councillor Robert Watson will introduce this motion.
Thank you, Chair. I do realise, councillors, that we do have a busy meeting. I'll therefore keep this short. I cannot believe that any reasonable person would want to see this council responsible for the destruction of valuable peat habitat. This started last month when the council contractors were filling up the planters around the newly refurbished paddling pool at Sutton-on-Sea, and I was horrified to see them using 100% Irish moss peat compost, a whole pallet load of the stuff. Other residents in the area were also shocked to see this. I contacted our head of procurement to inquire why this was happening and was informed that although a peat-free compost had been specified, not enough of the product had been supplied to site, and the peat-based product was sourced by the subcontractor. I find this excuse rather implausible given the very large amount of peat compost at the site. I think it probably more likely that cost was a factor here. The council does have an agreed procurement strategy that contains a section on sustainable procurement, but it does not specifically mention peat and clearly did not work in this case. Therefore, I believe it is imperative to bring a motion before the council that specifically bans the use of peat, not only by the council and its contractors, but any organisation funded by the council should also be prohibited from using peat. I am honoured that the deputy leader of the council has agreed to second the motion. He is well known as someone that cares about the environmental reputation of the council. Now, my apologies to anyone who disapproves, but let me go woke for a moment. Peatlands are a unique ecosystems that support a wide range of plants and animals found nowhere else, and these areas store vast amounts of carbon, and when peat is extracted, carbon dioxide is released. All major DIY stores and garden centres have acted before the law banning peat has actually been enacted and brought into legal force, and they've all long since stopped selling peat-based compost. It is clearly time that this council takes a positive step to ensure that we eradicate its use too. please support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'll not comment at this stage, but I'm quite pleased to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. Councillor Land.
Thank you. I don't normally get the chance of a second calling. As I was saying, Councillor Watson has a great intention, and I'm totally with him on what he's saying on the reasons behind it. But come on, for goodness sake. By 2026, domestically, you can't buy peat-based compost. By 2030, commercially, you can't buy it. And I realise there's a time lag in between. However, we can't have officers time monitoring all these sort of things. And how many other planters are they really going to do? It's not going to make that big a difference. And I mean, crikey, you've got China belching out goodness knows what, and India belching out whatever into the atmosphere. I realise something's got to suck it all up somewhere and absorb it into the peat or whatever, but crikey, this is just taking wokeness to the next level. You know, who's going to monitor it? Who's going to write it into the contract? Who's going to make sure that that was the correct grade that was used and that wasn't a scrap of peat in that compost that was used in those planters, wherever it might be in the future? I'm afraid we've got much bigger things to worry about coming down the line other than this. We need to get a grip on reality. Thank you.
Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to get up and simply say that we would really, get behind and support this policy. But then listening to Councillor Leonard, I think you need to be awake and not worry about woke, because actually we do have a responsibility. And making comments that you've just made that this isn't important just about delivers the level of your understanding of our responsibility, because we absolutely do. And it's so disheartening to hear that kind of language used in our council chambers in 2025. I would happily be woke if it meant I disagreed with those comments that you made. And we would wholeheartedly support the motion from Councillors Watson and Marsh.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Councillor McNally.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just got I would like the proposer to just answer some questions when he's summing up. To start with the wording, I can't understand why the council requests that the executive endeavours that only peat free, yet when it comes to the grants, you've said must not use it. So why is it endeavour for the council, and for anyone getting a grant, it's definitely not. I think that needs changing before anyone agrees anything. I understand the contractors, the specification can be, agreed at the council, everything else. But how do you enforce something like the council of grants? So if I give £50 out to someone to a flower bed, I'm not going to go round and ask them. So explain to me how you're going to enforce. I mean, like I say, I get the council bit, but I don't get the grant bit. What is the penalty you're going to impose on the community grants if they don't spend their £10 on peat-free compost? Because if you can't enforce it, and if you're not going to impose a penalty, then to be quite honest, there's no point in putting the grant bit on that motion. You might as well take it off, because otherwise all we're doing is virtue signalling. And I get the rest, but I don't get the last bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Danny Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. I do support this motion as it was endeavour to use peat-free. I wouldn't want to see the town empty of boxes because they couldn't get any peat-free. So that endeavour I would support. Same as with the grants, it needs to be endeavour. Same as what Councillor McNally said. How do you enforce that? So I was quite happy to support it with, we endeavour to do that because that's our best we can do. But to actually ban it, I'm a little bit concerned of walking around the seafront and seeing everything empty because we couldn't get any peat-free. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Leyland.
Thank you. I've been taking copious notes. You must be awake. Woke. I think that's a brilliant line. Might get that tattooed on a piece of my body. Anyway, moving swiftly on. I just realised this is a live recording. I think we can support this. I think the point's been made about the word endeavour, and I think that's a fair point. You know, this is about intent and willingness to do something, and I can't argue with the fact that actually we should be doing this. Taking Councillor Lennon's point, you know, the legislation will come in that this is then something illegal. So we will support it with the emphasis on being endeavour. And if the proposer and seconder can happily agree to that, then they'll have this party support. Thank you.
Councillor Hesketh.
I completely agree with Councillor Leyland, and then can I suggest we move to a vote? I'm sure we've got other things that we need to move on.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The point's well taken that Council Alice said. I leave it to the proposer to approve that, but I'm quite happy to have the endeavour come in. But I think it's so sad to hear the first comments that came out, because 1 minute we're supposed to be leading our communities, giving an example, and the next minute it can't be bothered, can we? It's nothing. If everybody did nothing, nothing would get done. But if everybody did a little bit, it would make a huge difference to the world, not just because it's carbon, but in anything and everything we do. And I think the first steps are often the most important. And I think it's a clear sign of leadership from this council and these councillors. If we say to people, we're making a stance, we don't want to see peat-based compost used, because it's not just about taking the peat out, it's destroying something that's taken years and years and years to build up, it's just you can't replace it, and there's all that carbon trap there. And I think the last time I looked at any of the figures, peat beds and the bulrushes and boggy bits like that take up far more carbon out there than lots of things that we're professing we must do. Leave things alone like that, let it do what it should be doing and has done for years and years, and look for an alternative. They are there. So I'm pleased to support this, subject to that one word changed if the proposal might change it. And if not, I'll stick with what it says because I think he's right.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'll try and answer the questions. I thought this was a fairly innocuous motion, but it appears not. Councillor Leonard refers to the law that's coming in, which will completely make this worthless. The law has already pushed back the complete ban on peat. It should have been the end of 2024. It's now progressing in front of us. It is difficult for some commercial growers, I understand, to operate and get successful results with peat-free. It boils down to how good you want your garden to be, and if you want your own little bedding, your own pots to look really good, and are happy to see the decimation of peat bogs here, well, mostly wiped out in England, but certainly wiped out in Ireland as well. Perhaps it's still a colony, I don't know. I'm simply asking that the specification be put into the procurement procedure that no peat should be used. Councillor McNally raised the query over the word endeavours. I still think that's appropriate, really. Yes, I agree, it's very difficult to demand that all those who get a grant from this council should not use peat. But I think we need to make, as far as possible, our position as a council clear. And we really should specify that they don't use peat. Councillor Brooks said that peat-free compost is sometimes not so widely available. I'll query that. In the case in Sutton-on-Sea, peat-free compost is widely available 100 metres away from the site they were using. That more and more of it is coming in now. It's very widely used in the retail sphere. It's certain commercial growers, such as this stuff that we saw being used in Sutton-on-Sea, that I still want to use it because it's cheap and because it gives a reasonable amount of growth. Yes, but I am happy with the word endeavour, but I think that the motion as it stands is acceptable, and I suggest that we move to the vote.
As it stands. Right, so we're voting on the motion as it stands. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Any abstentions? That motion is carried.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a point of order? Could you tell me, or the Chief Executive, how you're going to enforce that? Thank you.
Councillor, I'll do so outside the meeting. That's just not a point of order, so we'll come back to that.
Thank you. Right, we move on then to the second motion. The motion is that the council welcomes the end to the threat of a nuclear waste dump in our area, and in order to mitigate our residents from any similar threat, recommends to the executive that the authority joins the Nuclear Free Local Authorities Group and appoints an elected member representative to serve on the steering committee of the NFLAs. So that again is proposed by Robert Watson.
Thank you, Chair. And on the 5th of March this year, this council unanimously voted to oppose the construction of a geological disposal facility for nuclear waste in Lincolnshire and urged the County Council to follow suit. Wisely, the County Council also agreed to throw out the dump, and on that day you could almost feel a collective sigh of relief throughout our county. It was, of course, East Lindsey that bore the brunt of the stress and disruption to people's lives that this project caused. And it was this council whose members and officers spent substantial time and resources during the 4 years that the threat hung over us. One hopes that reparation to the council will one day be made by Nuclear Waste Services, but I think that members will agree that the GDF represented a nightmare to many residents and a distraction for this council, as it ultimately proved to be a long drawn out and singularly unproductive process. The defeat of the GDF plan demonstrated clearly that the people of East Lindsey do not want nuclear. And as the elected representatives for the people of East Lindsey, I believe we should do all that we can to signal that we are opposed to future nuclear power projects, both in our district and also within Lincolnshire. We can make plain this council's position and reassure our electors of our resolve to fight any future threat like the GDF by taking up membership of the Nuclear Free Local Authorities. For over 40 years now, this group has been a voice for all the councils opposed to civil nuclear power and works to influence national policy on radioactive waste management, new nuclear power stations, and nuclear emergency planning. These councils have taken up NFLA membership to preemptively put down a marker against nuclear, and the residents of, for example, Cardiff, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Hull, Leeds, Manchester, and even the Shetland Islands have the assurance of knowing that they live in an area which has declared its opposition to nuclear power, nuclear weapons, and supports sustainable energy alternatives. Ah, yes, sir, I can hear you thinking, but what about these small modular reactors that the government is so keen on? If we declare our area to be nuclear free, we would miss out on one of these splendid and probably quite lucrative installations. I will, of course, gloss over the hypocrisy of wanting energy from nuclear power, but declining to take the nuclear waste which the process produces. So let's have a quick look at energy generation from nuclear power. Hinkley Point C in Somerset has doubled in cost to a projected £46 billion and will be delivered at least 12 years late. An astonishing £17.8 billion has already been spent or pledged by British governments to its successor, Sizewell C. This is even before a spade is put in the ground. It is likely to come in at upwards of £40 billion and be operating when? Maybe the late 2030s? far too late to make any significant contribution to net zero. Turning to small modular reactors, Great British Nuclear has selected Rolls-Royce to build just 3 of these by the mid-2030s with a public subsidy of £2.5 billion. This is unlikely to pay for even one. SMRs are expected to cost even more to build per megawatt of electricity than their bigger cousins, and they also produce far more radioactive waste. They are a big gamble. No SMR design has yet completed safety evaluation in the UK. None have been built or operated safely anywhere in Europe. And even if they were economic and reliable, plants would only come online after at least a decade. Again, far too late to make any significant contribution to net zero. As we well know, management of nuclear waste is an issue of great public concern. But fear about radioactivity being released into the environment is also a worry. People remember Chernobyl and Fukushima, and we have seen nuclear power plants being attacked in Ukraine and Russia. But the overriding reason for nuclear being doomed to fail is economic. Last year, the Scottish Government estimated the cost of new nuclear power to be around £109 per megawatt hour, while offshore wind is around £44. Nuclear energy generation is blindingly uneconomic, and British consumers of nuclear energy will be paying amongst the highest prices for electricity in the world. Therefore, I ask you to promote public safety, preserve the environment, and protect our people. This is our responsibility as a local authority. Please support the motion, and when your grandkids ask you what you did as a councillor to protect them, tell them that you voted to keep us nuclear free. Thank you.
Councillor Bristow, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll reserve my right to speak later.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold then.
Thank you, Chair. More than happy to support this motion. I think for those of us that have been involved in the lives of the people that were directly affected by the fear of the geological disposal, I think a lot of us have worked very closely with the nuclear free, and I think it's the right thing to do. We don't need any people of our area to have to go through what even one of the people of Bedfordthorpe, Mablethorpe and surrounding Gayton, Carlton went through. And I'm more than happy to support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm fully aware of the points being made about the concern that was expressed by residents over the potential GDF that we were asked to consider and that we were involved in the process to consider. That has moved on. We made a decision, certainly as an executive, that was fully shared by council, not to progress that. And I dare say if that ever emerged in the district again, it would be a similar position. But I'm struggling to say that I can support this. We are in danger if we do actually say we are a nuclear district. The reality is we do not fully understand our future energy needs. We do not fully understand what will be happening. We just had the debate about the pylons. For goodness sake, that's going to be a massive impact on us. And if there is the potential for safe delivery of nuclear energy, we should not be averse to considering that in the future. Technology is expensive, that's fully understood. I was listening to a programme on Radio 4 the other day saying that how other countries deal with nuclear power construction, and it's much different to how we do it. If we learned from other countries, we probably deliver it more cheaply. The reality is we are also a county that's heavily invested in the MOD, and we don't know what sits in our midst and what is transported around the district and around the county in our defence. You mentioned Ukraine. When that war first started, we had a very genteel lady come into our shop and said, "Aren't we lucky we live so far away from all this trouble?" I didn't want to point out to her that we were 3 miles away from RAF Coningsby, that if there was a nuclear attack, we would be vaporised in about 2 seconds. I didn't say that because I was trying to plug us some furniture. But the reality is we are in a very volatile situation in terms of energy provision. the delivery of renewable energy as the alternative to what we've had in the past is reaching a point where it's coming online to be more balanced, but actually we still need a reserve of power that's there when renewable energy doesn't deliver. So that potentially could be nuclear, and I think it would be unwise of us to support this motion at this point in time. I'd also like to point out this is actually a membership organisation. You can join it as individual councillors, you can join it as a town council, you can do encourage as many people that you want to join it as possible. So you can still express your desire that this is a nuclear-free district. But I'm afraid, obviously, my group will speak for themselves, but certainly as leader of this council, I can't unfortunately support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yardley.
Councillor Leyland has stolen my thunder. I almost had similar concerns I was going to voice. One of the things I wanted to ask was, Councillor Watson, how much would it cost the council to have a rep on there? Is it a paid membership? And I think from what Councillor Leyland just said, it sounds like it might be. Also, what are the chances of us being able to withdraw membership from this? Is that a possibility in the event something happens in the future? Who knows what? In which case, you know, if it's not, you know, it doesn't produce as much nuclear waste, it's supposed to be 30% more for smaller nuclear reactors. But I was just wondering what happens, how does that work? Can you get out, can you not? Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Mossop.
Yeah, more of the same, I'm afraid, Councillor Watson. Although you're ideally placed to join the nuclear-free local authorities group. I think this is far too specific as a motion, and I really do wonder what we would be signing up to with this particular organisation. The membership is very broad and widespread. I note that even Louth is a member of it. I don't think it's your Louth, Councillor Makinson-Sanders. I think it might be Louth in Northern Ireland that are signed up to it. Southern Ireland, Northern Ireland, I don't know, but it's very widespread, and I don't think there's any benefit to us joining that as a council, including the fact that we would then maybe qualify for expenses and travel and such like, which I don't think we should be spending money on specifically. And as we move to unitary, it's going to take up the time of councillors such as yourself, who's really, it's important that you're here in this community and not elsewhere. And also when we talk about this, we're these fine words, and I welcome the first sentence about the end of the threat of nuclear waste dump, but we need to keep the options open for the future, and we should face each threat. And, you know, is it carbon storage threat? Is it the hydrogen production threat? Is it solar generation? Is it wind generation? And we should treat each of these threats with the same determination that you, Councillor Arnold, Councillor Hesketh, all did when opposing the nuclear waste dump at Fallowthorpe. So my conclusion on this is a no on this one, I'm afraid. And just can I say, it's incredibly liberating to be here back on the back benches. After 2 years of being zipped up at the front there looking after you guys, it's been really nice to be able to speak again. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mossop. Councillor McNally.
Thank you, Chairman. I think pretty much everything's been said. I mean, my question is, what was the cost to join in the thing? Because on the website it said contacted them. I presume you'd done your homework and got the cost. I think it's only, from what I'd heard, it was only £20 for a single councillor to join for the authority. Wondered, you know, with the ongoing, what's been going on for the past 4 years, I actually thought you would have probably already been a member, to be honest. You know, I find it odd that, you know, two of the councillors from the coast are worried about something that might or might not happen, when, you know, there was the report earlier in the year that said the sea defences have gone from 100 years to 25 to 50 years on the coast, which will wipe Sutton-on-Sea out, you know, end off. So I'd be more concerned with fighting that than something that might or might not happen. So thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Davey.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Just a couple of final observations, I hope. Firstly, we're not going to get away from the nuclear power argument in this country. All the political parties in this room, with the exception of the Greens, all the main political parties are in support of nuclear power as part of the energy mix going forward. The Labour government is, Conservatives are, Reform are. It's part of how we're going to meet the challenges of the future. We're not going to deliver data centres at the scale we need in this country without some kind of really big commitment around power generation that is going to be consistent. It's fine to say, as the Labour government have, that our big data centre is going to be in Oxford next to the nuclear fusion plant there. That's not going to come on stream till 2040, if on time, who knows. The one in the Trent Valley, that will power probably a big centre here in this region, but it won't come on stream till 2045 probably. We've got the most expensive power in the world. It is driving industry from these shores. Our residents can't afford their bills, and we just really need to start thinking about the bigger picture stuff. We've made a decision as this council and the county council, underlined by the new administration, that the nuclear disposal facility is a dead duck, and it is a dead duck. But we are going to have a grown-up conversation about how we meet the needs of the future. And if we really don't want our landscapes to be plastered with pylons and onshore wind and solar, then we are going to have to embrace new technologies that are coming on stream. Hydrogen will be very important in all of that, and we're going to have a debate about that. And we're going to have to back firm generating capacity. Just to give you an example, the wind fleet tonight, we have 32 gigawatts of installed capacity. It's working at 0.99 gigawatts. What's powering our homes tonight? Gas. And that's not going to go away. And as today, Ed Miliband has said, he's told Nesso, who, as you know, are part of the drive for these pylons, he's told them that they've got to provide 40 gigawatts of backup generating capacity. The only way to do that will be 35 to 40 new gas powered stations across the UK. So, we're all going to have to get very, very wise to what's really the challenge of the future. We've got to meet the energy question, and we need to do sustainable stuff here ourselves. I've said for years, solar panels on every new build, solar panels on car park. We need to, if we want to do stuff locally, we can do it. We're empowered to do it. No, you can. You can put solar panels on car parks. Well, not it. I've always campaigned for it. But where? Can I just say?
Thank you. Thank you. Speakers trying to speak. Thank you.
I was just finished, Chairman, by saying that, a lot of buildings in this even in this council, we have put solar on buildings, and we did that at the county council for many years, put it on farm buildings and everything else. We can do more of that. We have some choices to make as local politicians. We should make some choices.
I've got Councillor Ashton. Councillor Ashton.
How do I follow that? I'll do my best and try and keep this brief, because a great many of the points I would have made have already been covered, but I think it's fair to say that there is no green utopia out there. There is no perfect balance that's going to give us carbon-free energy generation to meet the obligations that this country has signed up to, while we say absolutely no to everything else. And it's very easy to oppose stuff. It's very easy to say no, we don't want nuclear anywhere near. And yet we're hearing earlier this evening the threat not just of a pylon line coming through Lincolnshire, but the potential that that line has to open up the whole of the eastern part of East Lindsey to become one giant solar farm. And if the alternative to that is nuclear, I would be quite happy to see a little bit of nuclear, because I believe the overall harm to the landscape that we cherish is in no way comparable. We live in a changing world. You know, our electricity in this part of Lincolnshire used to be delivered by those silent sentinels happily burning coal in the Trent Valley. And, you know, again, I would probably prefer that to the vast swathes of the eastern half of East Lindsey being carpeted in solar. You know, field after field after field after field. We've already seen the applications in the west of the county coming into 2,000 acres at a time. This is every field on every side of the village, and I genuinely don't want to see that. So in my view, we cannot just say no to everything. We have to say yes at some point to something. And I really do question that if how keen would we have been as a country when we signed up so enthusiastically to net zero targets a few short years ago, if we really understood what meeting some of those targets on this timetable may well mean for the communities that we represent and where we live. So I think there has to be a balance. If we're going to meet those targets, we have to do it in a balanced and a sensible way, and we have to keep as many options open as we possibly can. And I take the point that's already been made. You know, at the end of the day, if we have high energy costs, then it's our residents that suffer, our businesses that fail. Yeah, and this is a challenge that the whole country has got to meet and has got to address. So I wouldn't want to see us as a council here making a decision on this to sign up to something that we may certainly regret in the future.
Okay. Councillor Bakins and Sanders.
Following on from what Councillor Leyland said, if we became a nuclear-free zone, would that mean that RAF Coningsby wouldn't be allowed to carry any nuclear bombs?
Thank you. Did you say Councillor? Councillor Bristow, would you like to speak? Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. It's very interesting, and I hope you all listen back to yourselves, because thank you for your comments. To echo, not me. I'm just absolutely horrified that we can so vehemently object to the National Grid pylons whilst welcoming the prospect of nuclear reactors, especially when we've roundly refused their waste. That just reeks of NIMBYism and hypocrisy to me. And I think that's a really, really sad thing, which is why I want you to listen back to this meeting. Communities applauded when the leader did what was right by our residents and withdrew our council from the GDF siting process. Given that threat has now been neutralized, with Lincolnshire County Council following through on what the previous administration started, it would seem unconscionable and absolutely, in my words, hypocritical that we would then welcome the construction and operation of nuclear energy producing facilities on our doorstep. And in the twilight of East Lindsey District Council, we have to seriously consider the long-term impact we make on our communities. What legacy do we wish to leave? So rather than think, does this matter, and will it matter when we're gone, consider the legacy, and that our communities deserve to know that it wasn't just about the waste being dumped. It was about the creation of said waste for it to become someone else's problem, which is frankly what I heard this evening. Please join me in voting to encourage the executive board to reject the nuclearization of our district and lead the way for others in the county to follow suit. Let us take a seat at that table and be part of a longer term solution where we see a society beyond nuclear. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so we'll go. Oh. Yeah, just to sum up then, Councillor Watson.
Yeah, I'd just like to come back to some of the points we made. I'm sorry this motion has been like putting the cat amongst the pigeons, really. And it's led to some unfortunate exchanges. Councillor Arnold, thanks for your support. Councillor Leyland, yeah, the future isn't certain with regard to energy, but renewable energy needs the investment. I talked about the £40 billion we're spending on a single nuclear installation. some of that was put towards developing renewable energy, looking at, there's a whole range of things. No one has ever really considered tidal energy, which isn't reliant on nature, wind or solar, wind or sun. It's there all the time. There must be other ways out there to research renewable energy and make it more available. Interconnectors already go under our sea, joining us with other countries. If we could arrange some, it's always, the wind is always blowing somewhere, the sun is always shining somewhere. The more we join in with other countries, that would also help our situation. Councillor Yardley, you asked about the cost of joining, rightly asked about the cost of joining the NFLAs. It would cost this council in the region of £1,000 a year. Councillor Mossop, yeah, GDF took 4 years, and someone said, I think also said that we need to be aware of what could come up, but we are, if every threat we faced takes us 4 years to resolve, and the point here is creating so much stress for members of the public out there, and they look to us to protect them. I don't really think we're doing that. There are other factors affecting us. I mean, as Councillor McNally said, Sutton-on-Sea, certainly it is doomed. I know that. I saw that sea level rose by about 8 inches in the last 100 years. I would forecast that it'll be at least 10 times that in the next 100 years, probably more. Councillor Davies said that politicians are, they're all in favour of nuclear power. Politicians aren't always right, as we know. Let's invest in renewable. Let's look at tidal, as I said earlier. Let's consider other ways. Let's generate more toxic waste for future generations. And let's give confidence to our residents that we support them against future threats. Goodness knows, we've got enough hitting us now. We've got pylons, we've got carbon capture, oil drilling in the Wolds. We need to at least try and put down a marker that we're not a pushover in this district. We really do want to say that we're going to protect what we have as strongly as possible. And I see membership of this organisation would put down that marker. And I urge you to consider future generations and what your grandkids are going to ask you and support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. So move to the vote. Those in favour of this motion, please show your hands. Those against? Abstentions, anybody? That falls then. Yeah, I think so. We are doing. We are doing. Right, councillors, I'm sure we've sat here for a long time now. We'll take a 10-minute comfort break.